other day, my girlfriend, who loves antiques, and I decided to go for a drive and visit antique stores and recycle stores. I also like vintage clothing, so I was collecting bargain NES software and vintage clothing. I was also collecting vintage clothing. Although the things we buy are different, the stores that sell such things are the same. We were having a good time going around the stores. We were able to buy a few bargains from each other, and we were both excited as we drove away. As we were driving along, we noticed a small store. Woohoo! Surprisingly, there are some rare games in such a deserted store, aren't there? I entered the store with my girlfriend, who looked at me with cold eyes. It was a small store, about the size of a convenience store. It seemed to be mostly used books, not much furniture or used clothing. They didn't seem to have much in the way of furniture or used clothing. I was about to say, "Let's get out of here," when she let out an exclamation of surprise. I ran over to her and found her standing in front of a basket case filled with stuffed animals and ornaments. I asked her, "Did you find any bargains?" "This is awesome," she said, and I saw a 20-sided figurine, which had been pushed into the bottom of the basket case. She picked up the icosahedral figurine that was shoved into the bottom of the basket case, weaving her way through the stuffed animals and other figurines. Looking back, I wonder why she could see the object, which was at the bottom of the basket case and should not have been visible from the outside. The mysterious event may have already started here. What is this? A premiere thing? No, I've never seen it before, but maybe I should buy this ornament. Well, it is true that this figurine, with its indescribably calm color, may not be bad as an object. I would have bought it if it was cheap. I said, "If it's cheap, I'll buy it." I took the icosahedron to the cashier. A dreary old man was sitting there, reading an old book. "Excuse me, how much do you want for this?" At that moment, I did not miss it. I didn't miss the look on the old man's face when he looked up from the used book and saw the icosahedron. He looked at the icosahedron with an expression that could only be described as astonishment, and then immediately turned into a normal old man's expression. "Oh, this, let's see, how much was it? Hey, can you wait a minute?" After saying that, the old man went into a back room. I heard him arguing with an old woman who seemed to be his wife. After a while, he brought a yellowish piece of paper. It is one of the so-called toys called Rinfone. This manual tells you all about it. The old man unfolded a yellowed, dirty piece of paper. It seems to be very old. On the paper was a picture of an icosahedron with the word Rinfone written on it. It was a picture of how the icosahedron transformed into a bear, then a hawk, then a fish. It was also accompanied by a language that I did not understand. The old man said it was written in Latin and English. The picture was written in Latin and English. "First, wrap your hands around the Rinfone and stroke it like you would a rice ball." She did as she was told, wrapped the Rinfone in both hands, and stroked it around as if she were holding an onigiri rice ball. Then she heard a click, and one of the icosahedron's faces rose. "Wow, that's amazing. Try turning the protruding object and pulling it up higher." She did as Mr. G told her, and this time, another side caved in. It's like a puzzle. It is very difficult to explain in words how this works, but have you ever heard of a toy called Transformers? Cassette tapes transform into robots, guns and trucks transform into robots, and so on. It's a toy that was popular in the past. This Rinfone also transforms into a bear or a truck by pushing or turning any part of the icosahedron. You can imagine that by pushing or turning any part of the icosahedron, the Rinfone transforms into a bear, a hawk, a fish, or any other animal. She was now very interested in the Rinfone. Even I thought it was a great toy. "Well, how much does it cost?" she asked timidly. "It's a pretty old thing, but we'd forgotten we even had it." But we forgot we even had it. How about a special price of 10,000 yen? If we put it on the internet, people who like it will buy it for hundreds of thousands. I think people who like it would buy it for hundreds of thousands of dollars. She was a good haggler. In the end, she reduced the price to 6,500 yen, and I left the restaurant with a satisfied look on my face. The next day was Monday, so we both went home right after dinner at the restaurant. Monday. When I arrived home after work, I received a phone call from her. It's really like a puzzle, and it forms itself into the shape of an animal. I couldn't stop thinking about it while I was at work. It's more fun than a bad video game. She was talking excitedly. After we hung up, I got a text message. Her hands holding the Rinfone shifted, and I saw what looked like a bear's head and two legs sticking out of the Rinfone, and two legs sticking out of the Rinfone. I was impressed with how well it was done, texted her my impressions, and went to bed that day. The next day, as I was driving home from work, I received a text from her. It's really interesting. I was up all night last night playing with Rinfone and I finally made a bear. Come check it out. She said something along the lines of come see it. I laughed and turned the car toward her house. She said she stayed up all night. But did you go to work? I asked her as soon as we arrived. Yes, I did. But it made me sick because I drank too much coffee. I drank too much coffee, but it made me sick, she replied. On the table was a Rinfone in the shape of a bear with four legs and its head slightly raised. She said, "Oh, isn't it seriously awesome? I wonder how it works. Isn't it amazing? I'm really into this. The next one should be a hawk from this bear. I'm thinking of doing it as soon as possible. Hey, don't stay up all night or something. Why don't you do it tomorrow?" That's true, she said. We ate a simple home-cooked meal together and left that day. By the way, I forgot to mention that Rinfone is roughly the size of a softball. Wednesday. On the way home from work, I texted her this time. Did you sleep okay? I was just wondering if you slept okay. I replied, I slept fine last night. I'm going home now and looking forward to the rest of the story. Then, around 11 p.m., I guess, while I was engrossed in playing PS2, I received a text message. I was engrossed in my PS2 when I received a text message. The hawk is ready. It's really realistic. Whoever made it must be a genius. When I opened the mail, I found a Rinfone in the shape of a hawk with its wings spread. Even to my amateur eyes, it was an elaborate construction. There was a hawk there that looked like it was about to flap its wings at any moment. Of course, it was a toy, so it was uneven to some extent. Still, it was well made. It was amazing, and all that was left was the fish. But don't get too carried away, build it slowly, I replied, and went to sleep. Thursday night. When I got out of the bath, my cell phone rang. It was her. Did you call me earlier? No. What's wrong? What's wrong? She rings every 30 seconds or so for the past 5 minutes or so. When I press call, it's something like the buzz of the city, a lot of people talking. I press the call button, but I hear something like the buzz of a busy street, like a lot of people talking. And then the call hangs up immediately. When I look at the incoming call, it usually says number displayed, or blocked call, or pay phone, right? But when I looked at the incoming call, it said Kanata. I didn't even register it as such. It's so weird. Well, should I go over there? No, I'm going to turn off the phone and go to bed. I see. Well, it must be some kind of interference. Oh, by the way, what happened to the Rinfone? The fish. Yeah, it's almost done. I'll lend it to you when I'm done. Yeah, I'll look forward to it. Friday. I was also curious about the strange phone call, so I called her and we decided to go to her house. The Rinfone was almost in the shape of a fish, just needed to add a dorsal fin and a tail and it looked like it was done. She said, you got another weird phone call at lunch? Yes. I was eating bread during my lunch break when my cell phone rang, and this time it was a normal, blocked call, so I picked it up. I pressed the call button, and I heard a lot of men and women saying, "Let me out," and then it went dead. I wonder if it was a busy line or a prank. Do you want to go to the cell phone store tomorrow? I'll do that. After that we talked about what a great toy the Rinfone is. I was fiddling around with various things to complete the fish, but I couldn't figure out how to get the tail and dorsal fins to appear. We were struggling with it, saying to each other, "I guess they are making it more difficult because it is the last one after all." Eventually I started to get sleepy, and since the next day was Saturday and I had brought a change of clothes, I decided to stay at her place. I decided to stay at her house. I had a bad dream. A lot of naked men and women were crawling up from the dark valley floor. I desperately climbed up the cliff to escape. I'm almost there, almost at the top. I would be saved. Just as I was about to reach the top, a woman caught my foot. "Take me with you. Take me. Take me." I woke up, drenched in sweat. It was only a little after 5 a.m. I couldn't seem to sleep again. I lay under the covers in a daze until she woke up. Saturday, I went to the cell phone store, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then, as a change of pace, we decided to have a fortune-telling session. There is a fortune-telling lady in the city called Auntie Cat, who is famous for her good fortune. She has a number of cats at home and does fortune-telling at her house. However, it seems that she needs reservations. I called her and was lucky enough to get an appointment for the following Sunday. I did some shopping and stayed out that day. Sunday, I arrived at Auntie Neko's house in the early afternoon. I pressed the chime. "Yes," she said. "I have an appointment. It's open. Come in." When I opened the front door, I saw the cat in the hallway. When it saw us, it gave us a warning and ran away. When it saw us, it made a threat and ran away to the back. When we went down the hallway, we found Auntie Cat in the western room. She was literally surrounded by cats. The moment we entered, they all said, "Gah," and then they all ran away. And then they scattered and ran away. I felt bad. As we looked at each other with annoyance, she said, "I'm sorry, but you have to leave," the cat lady said. I was a little peeved and asked her what she meant. I was a little miffed and asked her what she meant. She said, "I have a lot of cats because I am sensitive to such things. Cats are the ones who tell fortunes, and they sort out the good ones from the bad ones." I've never had this reaction before. For some reason I had a flash of inspiration and told the lady about the strange phone call to her and the nightmare I had had. Then, "Behind your girlfriend, I see what looks like an animal object. Throw it away now," the aunt replied reluctantly. I asked her if there was something wrong with it. She turned away and said, "Please leave. I don't want to say or see any more about it." She, too, was becoming pale. I relentlessly bit down. What was that all about? Is it cursed or something, as is often the case with antiques? I kept asking again and again until she answered. Then she stood up. "That is a condensed, microscopic version of hell. It is the gates of hell. Throw it away. Go home. The money. I don't want it." The face of the screaming lady at this point was the scariest thing I've ever seen. We went back to her house that day. We immediately wrapped the Rinfone in the yellowed instruction manual in newspaper, wrapped them in duct tape, and threw them in the garbage. Wrapped them in duct tape and threw them in the garbage. The trash was eventually picked up and no more incidents have occurred since then. A few weeks later, when I went to her house, she, who also likes anagrams, took a piece of paper and a pen and began to say, "You know, Rinfone. Rinfone is spelled Rinfone. Maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's just a complication, but if you rearrange it, it could also read Inferno, hell. Ha ha ha, no way, coincidence, coincidence. I wonder what would have happened to the fish if I had finished it. Ha ha ha." I could only laugh dryly. I could only laugh dryly at the fact that it was being disposed of in a landfill and that there was no second one. And I was subconsciously praying that there would not be a second one.